Naptown Tuner here. This video here, it's gonna be a banger. I mean, I bet you at least 500 people watch the whole entire, from end to end. Some of y'all probably only watch you probably stop right now. Shut your yapper, stupid 20-year-old truck, belt squeak. Anyway, let's just get to work. On this engine, I gotta get this one out of the way. We'll work on it in another video. When you move an engine around, when it's on the engine stand, you don't jack it all the way up, dummy. You keep it on low, near the center of the gravity low, kind of like when you want to keep the center of the gravity low in your vehicle. When you get in a big SUV or in a big truck, it goes. But the same thing applies to an engine stand. So keep it low and then it moves much more freely. You know what else I like to do if it's got wires? I like to yank its ponytail. How you like this little swivel mount? I put it on my tire machine. Come on, the people are waiting. Here's how you lift up the engine hoist so you don't have to sit there and crank it when it's empty. You might have to hustle it up a few times, but then it stays there. My skid steer is still on a job site. I need to grab it. Man, look at this. That's nice. I don't know what I'm gonna use it for, but probably nothing. Now my favorite engine stand is this one over here, but I'm gonna do one more video on that one before I put it all the way back together. This engine stand right here is what all you guys have available. It's probably what most of you have in your garages, your little one-car garages like Scotty Kilmore. Bent, broken. Can we get you closer now? Let's get you close. Like, you gotta see some stuff. So the word for today's video is going to be repower. To restore power, to renew, to make run again. Okay, the engine, that whenever I would need to buy an engine like this, it's for a very rare circumstance where there's some type of oil starvation issue or some premature failure where something broke or came apart, like a piston exploded or something like that. And that happens so few times, I would say that it's within the margin of error of any vehicle. Now, that's not saying much because we do have the timing chain issues and the oil consumption issues, but even those aren't really widespread as I make them out to be. Still, some vehicles, even in the affected years,
can go their whole life without a timing chain issue and their whole life without an oil consumption issue that's more substantial than what you would notice for regular consumption. Maybe like 3 quarts per 1,000 miles that's perfectly fine. Like the oil consumption in the owner's manuals, even all the way back to 2009, and I'll do a video in the future about weird stuff the owner's manual says, but it says that it's acceptable to use up to a half quart for every 600 miles. So that's 1 quart for every 1,200 miles. That's crazy, but it says it in the owner's manual. The first time I learned that, I was like, no, it doesn't say that. It says that. Wow. That's a crazy amount of consumption for them to say is okay, but they know more than me. Anyway, this engine is going to be, like I said, it's a replacement engine, and I'm going through it, stripping it down, and I'm going to be putting the accessories back on it for the proper application, because this is a flex fuel type engine, and it's going back into the previous generation, the non-flex fuel. A lot of times the miles are going to be less on the newer engines, so you can get an engine with flex fuel and put your regular components back on it. Let's just get back to the business. Okay, on a more serious note, I'm looking at this thing now that I got it completely unboxed, and this is secondary air injection. See this pipe right here? This would go to a secondary air pump. We have holes right there, the secondary air holes. That's for emissions. I'm not gonna get too deep into that, but so many things are different on this. I mean, this is different, this is different, this is different. This mount, I mean, it can be taken off, that's no big deal, but what else is different? I don't know. So the biggest obstacle on this right here is this secondary air injection. Now that listing that I bought this engine off of is stinking should have said hybrid, because this is a hybrid engine. I know these things. Unless someone in Canada can tell me that, no, this is how we do it in Canada, eh? Then, you know, maybe I'm wrong. There's always room for wrongness. So, next shot will be the other engine back on this stand, and I'll have to work with that one, which is still no big deal. It's still a 2013. It's just, it's got a few more miles on it, but it's no big deal. I'm getting impatient. I just want to get this thing done. Normally I would lay out all my tools, but if I have to grab a tool that's not right here in front of me, I'll just stop the camera and start it back up, and you won't know any of the difference. You'll just see. But this is the other engine back up on the stand. Let's just go through it. It's a junkyard engine. This is called a flex plate. If it was a flywheel, that would be like a manual transmission application. These things can be a little bit tricky to pull off. You just kind of, that one was easy. Sometimes they are. Bent up, broken. See, this one really isn't important anyway. I learned that from other people. I always put stuff back on, but after a while, other people might not, and then you kind of learn from them. But if I were to work on someone else's stuff, I have a good one to put on. Now, there's a date on the bottom of this rear main oil seal, and it says October of 2012, so that would make this a 13 engine, which I already know it is because it's got the aluminum intake manifold. That means it's flex fuel. All right, let's get going. I can't talk too much. I need to show off. What we got here is the crankshaft position sensor. Before we get to that, let's take off this ground wire. This ground wire, a lot of people have taken. Are you going to be able to get in a good enough view? If you're not, that's all the zoom we got, folks. All right, this ground wire on the side, if you just go loosening it, then it's going to break the wire terminal, which we don't really care that much anyway because this is a replacement engine. But for you people that might be replacing this after run coolant pump, tighten this nut first and then loosen it. Let's try that again. Let's get it even tighter. That worked. See, this is a stud and a nut, the one I'm using right now. I'll pull it out and show you. All right, I took the nut off. Now this part's the stud. We'll put that to the, we're just gonna, I know where all this stuff goes, so I'm not too worried about it, but let me just show you. Like I showed in one of my other videos, I like to use these bolt trays, and that helps you keep organized. So I got a stack of 4 of them right here. I'm just gonna grab one and start loading them up in different pockets. Just get some of this bulk off the side here. I'm not using that AC compressor ever again. You know what? I've never replaced one single AC compressor on any of these 2 cylinders, or 2 liters, or 3 liters, or, you know, the modern AC compressors have been extremely reliable. Now I will be careful with this alternator because I can use it. And we got a 13 millimeter on the back and a connector. Now if you didn't disconnect, now this is obviously not connected to the car, but if you didn't disconnect the power before you start taking this wire off, you could be in some big trouble. You have to disconnect power before you take the alternator wire off because this is a hot wire on the back of this stud. Broken wiring harness all over the place. This will kind of double as a video for taking off this flex fuel intake manifold. someone cranked this oil filter on there.
Just get another stupid call. Hi, this is Amazon. Just letting you know that you have a suspicious $748 charge from Dayton, Ohio. Yeah, I'm smart enough to check my Amazon account and I don't have any charges on it. And they've called me like a dozen times and the stupid thing's automated and I can't tell them to take me off the stupid call list. Fraud is so abundant. It's gonna get so abundant that at some point they're gonna make you have a chip in your skin. And that's when the Antichrist is gonna show up and administer that garbage. Anyway, this world is getting crazy. Now, this oil filter block, this intake manifold, it's all gotta come off. So yeah, I could take the oil filter off, I could, but I'm just gonna go ahead and take the whole block off because it needs changed out anyway. Come on now. One of the bolts was in there by like half a thread. Finished taking the after run coolant pump off. There's a 10 millimeter right here. This is your crankshaft position sensor right here. This is your cold start injector underneath the intake throttle body. And then we've got the coolant temp sensor on the water pump. We'll disconnect that. Just pull these out. The green one is your NOx sensor. NOx sensor's behind the water pump. This is your purge valve. I'm gonna be in the way. Let's stand over here. This is your camshaft position sensor up top here. High pressure fuel pump sensor, just disconnected that. All right.
right, let's pop this hose off right here, even though it's broken. You know what? Thinking about getting destructive. Some of this stuff is broken anyway. Should I get destructive? Now, how do we take this intake? I shouldn't have done that. You're gonna be like, now I don't know how to take the pipe out. It's broken. This is from a junkyard engine. It's been laying on its side in all different directions. If you wanna know how to take a hose out of a pipe, you can watch some more of my videos in the future. Now, this hose right here, pop it straight off. We're getting the intake manifold off, folks. This sensor right here on the top is different than this sensor down here. They're both fuel sensors. This is your high pressure fuel sensor on the rail. This sensor up here is for the flex fuel, and it tells you what percentage of regular versus corn fuel you got in there. Now there's two more hoses up top here we'll pop off. If you don't have the spring clamp pliers, you need to get the spring clamp pliers if you do any work on Audis. Because in this application, if you don't use the right tool, you'll bend the spring clamp, and then the spring clamp it won't be viable anymore. It'll be loose. Now, pushing it behind the hose and kind of wiggling it out. Don't slip and jam the sharp tool halfway through your hand. Now I do have a pair of hose pliers. I'll go ahead and show you those. The idea with the hose pliers is you grab around them and then you spin the hose as you pull it off. I don't use them that often. Now we gotta yank this intake manifold off. There's two 10 millimeters on either side. Let's get those. Now the trickiest thing about getting this intake manifold off is this weird fuel rail. It's got a bolt on the bottom and it's got a bolt over here on the side. We need to grab ourselves a 17 millimeter wrench or pair of Niprex pliers. Okay, the ferrule bolt on the bottom, is that what you call it? Ferrule? I just came up with that. Not a ferrule cap. The word that I'm thinking of, it's probably close to that if that's not what the word is. And it's not bolt either, it would be a nut. But, all right. Is that loose enough? I just didn't want to walk over and grab a 17mm wrench. Now there's one more for that hose. It's this T30 up top here, which you might not need to take off, but it's nice to get the thing loose. Now, we have the rest of the T30s, since we already took that. There's one more up here, this Evap Purge hose on the top. We gotta get this loose. Okay, now let's take our T30s out. Now this one has a hose behind it, so it's kind of squirrely in there. So let's take that bolt out and just kind of bend these up. They'll come right back down in there. Now there's two on the bottom. Those two are a little bit more difficult to get to. This one here I'm gonna need an extension for. Hurry up and grab the extension. Now, let's see. We still have this purge valve, but let me just see if I can remember if it can come out without. Okay. Look at that. Forgot a bolt for the camera. Got egg all over my face. Now, this is this goofy fuel hose I was talking about. Like an intermittent fuel hose. These are the nuts I was talking about. Ball nut. Stop with your dirty minds, fools. It's exactly what I said it was. Now, this is weird. Weird compared to the other style, because the other style pops right off. We got this wiring harness, but we also have this fuel rail. So, you know, this little connector here is a little bit squirrely, and these things are already difficult to push and pop out. So, let me just see if I can't, my hose pliers are right here handy. They're not the right size, but it's best to take this breather assembly off altogether, because even though this is also a ball fitting, see, you're not even getting, I'm blocking the camera this whole way. Even though this is a ball fitting down in here, there's still hardly any room to pop this thing out. So let's go ahead and just start over here and take the wiring harness off. Now, when it comes to these clips up here for your coil packs, what I've found is instead of pushing these little tabs back and trying to pull it back, just take a right angle pick or a flathead screwdriver or something very small and get up in here in this crevice, and you hear that? You do the same thing right here. You hear that? That one was already kind of snapped by someone else, but now, this bolt looked like it was all the way out, but it was deceiving. Is it stripped? Now let's pop these coil packs out. That was a real professional. Man, you can't see anything, can you? See, I'm being a little bit haphazard because I don't need this stuff. This stuff is possibly all broken. Whenever it comes off this engine, I can't even trust anything like a coil pack when it comes off of a junkyard engine, because it could be slightly tweaked sideways and it could cause it. See, this one's even numbered, but it's by someone else in the past, but they're trying to find an issue with a misfire, most likely. But I can't trust anything from the junkyard engine because something could have been laid on top of it, or it could have broken, or so it's not worth it to reuse the junkyard sensors and the junkyard coils. We're just trying to take it down to the long block. So I wouldn't be so haphazard. Whenever I'm putting it back together. Actually, you know what? That's not a smart idea. Now that I got this open and exposed, that would be a really dumb idea to scrape metal. I'm trying to be crazy for a video, but I'm going to tone it down a little bit and try to hone in on not being a little bit so crazy now. So let me give you a tech tip. See these cutters? This is how you cut your clamps. It works way better than just your regular side cuts. Still intact and all good. I'm going to take this hose off right here. All right, now let's continue with this fuel injector intake runner. If we can get a pry bar under it, we can most likely get it all in one shot. So I got two different sizes of pry bars. I'm gonna try the small one first. You know what I'm actually gonna do? I'm gonna get underneath the nub of the fuel injectors. I'll show you when it comes out. Now you have to be extremely delicate, but there is little plastic nubs on the side of these fuel injectors. And if you push on those, you can pop the fuel injectors out, just like I did. Now as I was holding it, one of the long bolts came out of the fuel rail. It's right here. Let's take a look at not very much carbon at all. We're looking pretty good. Those valves actually look pretty fantastic, and I'm going to show you. But my flashlight is inside the house, so be right back. And I can't find my flashlight right now, but those intake valves, really, they look great. A lot of times you'll see like actual garbage on the valve face. A little bit on the stem, that's nothing. All right, back up to the mount. It does have the newer timing chain. So I probably shouldn't have even taken, I about guarantee it's got the newer timing chain tensioner then. I might just put these bolts right back in and not even take that sealant loose. I mean, it's gotta have the updated, if it has the updated chain, it has the updated timing tensioner. I'm just gonna go ahead and just say that as fact. Updated timing chain tensioner. We're all in good shape. I'm gonna put these bolts, but I shouldn't have taken these bolts out prematurely. I should have taken this upper case off first and inspected the chain. But it appears as though someone has already replaced this timing chain and timing chain tensioner. That's a slight score. Part 2, I'm gonna go ahead and just do the rest of it.